A question for my African friends and Africa itself. Should I be worried about this? Watch the video to see what I'm talking about. Hi, Caribbeanologists. Welcome to the new face of vlogging. Coronavirus time, so I have to wear a mask, but I'm going to take it off. I'm going to bring it down eventually, so I can bring you this live that I want to talk about today. But before I do, for those of you who don't know where I live in New York City, and I'm here at the conservatory in Manhattan with all the beautiful tulips behind me. And just so you can get an idea of what I'm looking at in front of me, here you go. And for those of you who don't know where this is, because there are a lot of people that come to New York City and have no idea where the conservatory is. There's a whole lot of other trees and flowers and a big lawn on the other side, over in that direction. And but it's up here in Fifth Avenue around 105th Street, somewhere around in that area. So for those of you who might come out here to visit one day or come to the city, you can always come out here to the conservatory. It's a place I always come out to in the spring and summertime. But again, in the age of coronavirus, it's a little bit different. It's usually more crowded than this. But that's what we're looking at. And this is what we have here behind me, as you can see. Beautiful tulips. And in case some of you don't know this, but remember, once upon a time, New York City, Manhattan here, parts of it, or all of it, I guess, was under Dutch control. And we know that these are popular flowers in the Netherlands, with the Dutch. So this is basically what you're seeing here right now. A lot of tulips, a legacy of when the Dutch controlled this area. And just over there's a huge lake. It's called Harlem Meer, because I'm in the Harlem area of New York City. And Meer, I think in Dutch means lake. So I guess you'll call it the Harlem Lake. It's over this way. Okay? Anyway, today the topic I want to talk about, it's going back to Africa. And I've been watching a lot of videos, like I mentioned in the previous video, a lot of videos about, as a matter of fact, let me take this down a little bit. I think it looks a little bit better when you can see my mouth moving, actually. I saw I've been watching a lot of videos recently out of Africa. And thanks to people like a young man by the name of Wode, his girlfriend, I think her name is Miss Trudy, or that's the YouTube page name that she used. There's another page called Blaxit, BLA space XIT. And I look at those videos, and I've just been watching videos of various people who have moved to Africa, or people who are from Africa who moved away and came back home, and watching their videos. And I've just been watching a bunch of other videos just about different parts of Africa. There's also Displore, I think DISPLORE, another YouTube page YouTube channel that I've been following. And I've just been so impressed by what I've been seeing. The progress in Africa. Again, I am not one of those people who had this notion that Africa was just a bunch of jungles and animals running around the place and poverty. I knew better. I know that there are beautiful places in Africa. Natural beauty, beautiful architectural things in terms of new homes, complexes. And I do know that there's some places over there that makes places in New York look like garbage, actually. So I'm very well aware of that. But despite the fact that I'm aware of that, and I'm seeing the progress, I'm seeing the beauty, I still have a concern about something. And that concern is, it goes back to a certain legacy, a legacy of colonialism, a legacy of exploitation, and the legacy that the Europeans left on that continent. Now, I am really, really hoping that Africa and Africans have gotten this out of their system, has gotten past, and going forward, we won't see any more of this. And what am I referring to? It's this. The war, the violence, the civil war, the civil wars, I should say, the coup attempts, the coups. I hope all of those things have come to an end. But the reason why I'm worried, it's because it has been a part of the fabric of Africa up until recent years. And there's still some hot spots in Africa, especially Northern Africa. You have places like Nigeria where there's still struggles between the South and the North, the Christian South and the Muslim North. And you still have some little hot spots here and there. And I just feel like it's somewhat like a powder keg, just waiting to go off at any time. Now, the other problem that you do have some leaders who are there. I guess you call them strongmen, or I guess you could say that they're dictators without actually calling them that, but they've been in power for years. I am not going to say Paul Kagame of Rwanda is a dictator. Some people will probably say that he is, but he's been in power for, what, 26 years now? Or somewhere along that line, he's been in power. And some people have said he does not exactly tolerate opposition. Whether that's true or not, I cannot sit here and tell you. But that's what you have in certain parts of Africa where there are people who have been in power for quite some time. And they're trying to rearrange constitutions where they're going to rule for life. I think the person in Uganda came to power via a coup, and he's still in power after all these years. I think also in Gambia, you have situations where people talk about people disappearing. If you dissent or you voice any criticism against the government, bad things can happen to you. This is what I've heard. I'm not quite sure. I haven't really investigated it. But you look around, you see all the progress in Africa, which makes me worry because I'm wondering what happens when these people leave office. What happens if they die? What happens if they leave? If there's no opposition? Are they grooming anyone to come after them, to carry on their progressive policies if they have some, like Paul Kagame? Is there anyone in the wings waiting? Or is there going to be a power vacuum left? Because usually when you have opposition and opposition is silence, then what tends to happen is if that person who's silencing the opposition goes off the political map, they die or they get overthrown or something, you tend to have this power vacuum, and you tend to have this period where there's a lot of volatility and tensions that could pop off with certain things. I am just hoping this does not happen in these African nations that have bounced back from civil war, like Mozambique, that have bounced back from genocide like Rwanda, that have gone through the Idi Amin's and I forgot the other guy from the Congo, that have gone through people like them that have devastated the country, exploited, used up all the funds. People who have come out of that. I am just, but because the reason why, there's still people from that era who still carry a grudge, who still believe in war, who still believe in bloodshed. Now, what I'm thinking, I don't think the younger Africans today have an appetite for wars and all that nonsense. But for the older heads, the 65-year-olds, the 50-year-olds who remember the days of brutal regimes and persecution and torture, are those people still there just lurking in the shadows, that if there's a power vacuum, they bounce in and all they have known is just a bitterness and an anger that when they get in there, they just lose it, and before you know it, plunge the country back into some sort of civil war, or plunge the country back into some sort of tension and all the different things that go on. That worries me a great deal. And it would just be like minusing or taking away from all the progress that have been made. So I am really hoping that doesn't happen. I love to see how beautiful Maputo is. This is a country, this is a city, the capital city in Mozambique. Mozambique, a country that went through 10, 15, 25 years, I don't remember how many years of civil war, that have bounced back to build such a beautiful city, such a vibrant city. You look at places in South Africa, we all know what happened down there with apartheid, and they still have a lot of issues. But Johannesburg, Pretoria, and The country's so beautiful, Port Elizabeth. And you just hope that things progress for the better. That when there's an exchange of power, that it's peaceful, that elections are done fairly. Because again, that's another thing that triggers things. When there are not fair elections, it triggers problems. And I would just hate to see all this progress, the beauty of Africa, just go up again in smoke, go up again in civil wars and civil strifes and murders and rapes and pillaging and all the different things that go on. And I'm not basically, that's human, okay? So Europeans cannot stand in the corner because they went through their centuries of wars before they finally got their act right. Many of these African nations are relatively new. Europe, those countries have been around. Some of them have been around for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 900 years, over 1,000 years. And they went through all of their madness and craziness that they may look down at Africa today and say, well, look, why can't they behave themselves, those uncivilized people? Well, you have to remember, most of these countries in Africa are basically 60, 70 years old, 50, 55, 65 years old. Most of these countries are. They went through their growing pains, admittedly. And you look over there and you realize the place is really settled in a lot of places. And I'm just hoping that it stays that way, that the young people who are there right now, because the other thing that happens with power struggles are when the old guards have moved out, some of them want to hold on to power. And you have the young people with bright, progressive ideas, and they don't want to give up the power. They don't want to listen to the young people. They don't want to go the route that young people would like to take it. And as a result, you have that power struggle, and before you know it, you start hearing about college students being arrested because they're speaking out against the government, all these different things. So if you're watching this video and you understand what I'm talking about, please go into the comment section. If you're from Africa or if you observe African affairs, I would love to know what the feeling is, because how you know that despite all the beauty and the progress you see in Florida, in Africa, I used to live in Florida, that you see in Africa today, why are there still so many people risking their lives to cross the Sahara, to cross the Mediterranean, to get to Europe? Why are there still so many? That tells me that despite the progress you see in some of these countries, everyone is still not being treated equally. And everyone is still not receiving their fair share. And another thing that goes on in these countries, which I forgot to mention, is the fact that you have to understand, of course, I'm not speaking to Africans, well, I'm hoping Africans are watching, but Africans would know this. But for those of you who are not aware, you have to understand that the countries that we see in Africa today were not in existence prior to colonial days, other than Ethiopia and perhaps other countries in Northern Africa. Most of the other countries have artificial borders that were created by the colonial powers. And what do I mean by that? People were just living on the land. You had a tribe living over there, you had a tribe living over here, you had a tribe living somewhere else. These tribes may not have gotten along with each other in the past. Or they knew to stay away from one another. But what happens when a colonial power comes in and groups all of these tribes together and creates borders around them and say, hey, this country now is called Nigeria, or this country now is called Ghana. Of course, these are not names. I think these are African names, actually. But just say these borders are created around you. Now you have tribes that, historically may have had tensions with each other. Or you may have one group or one tribe that is more numerous than another tribe. And now you're putting them together within a border and saying, listen, live in peace with each other, live together. So what happened is when the colonial powers pulled out, then these tribes looking at one another, and it's like, who is going to assume power? Which tribe? Which person from which tribe? And when that happened, other tribes may feel, hey, he's just paying attention to his tribe. His tribe has the leverage. His tribe has the power. His tribe is getting everything. What about our tribes out here? And those type of things led to a lot of bloodshed. And it's still there. You still have people in Africa. We have it here in the United States, so we just don't call it tribes. But it's still something that's going on over there, where you still have tribes who feel they're marginalized, left out, their voices are not heard. And again, you just wonder, when a leader, a strongman leader who's whipping everybody into shape and keeping everybody under control, what happens when that person goes off the stage? Are these other tribes going to come forward and say, hey, we want to be heard now? And if we're not heard, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to go down. And I'm not saying it always comes out to where someone comes in and makes demands that way. It may start with just a dissenting voice in Parliament or in the government house, and they don't get the satisfaction they need. They go back home to their villages or to their area of the country, and they just basically start mumbling about it. They rally other people around, and before you know it, you have a full-out protest that leads to bloodshed. And on top of all of that, you have some countries in Africa that have terrorist groups within their borders who ferment rebellion and create problems. You have places like Mogadishu, where a bomb can go off at any given moment. Even in beautiful Nairobi, Kenya, they've had issues with this. And of course, not to mention the ongoing struggles that goes on in the Congo. Basically, still a civil war going on that got a lot of attention once upon a time, but it's no longer a big deal to Western media. So this video was just me expressing that concern. Again, I see the beauty. I see the progress. I smile when I see it. I'm so happy for Mama Africa. But what lurks in the shadows is what worries me. So again, if my African viewers are looking right now, even my Caribbean viewers, and you have thoughts on this, please, please go into the comment section. Again, I'm one of those type of people. When you say something, I respond. I'm not the type of person to leave you hanging. You say something, I generally go down to the comment section and I respond so we can have a civilized dialogue. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining in on this video, for staying all the way to the end to watch it. Okay? I will come up with another video hopefully soon. I just hope that this one, produce some thoughts in your mind. And I hope those thoughts get to your fingers and you get down into the comment section. You can share this video. Please share it. Hopefully you like it. You can dislike it if you want to. But like, dislike, whatever you want to do. But most importantly, I would love if you subscribe to this channel, Caribbeanology. Anyway, you guys take care. Let me go ahead and bring this video to an end. From this beautiful place, let me give you a last look. Hope you're seeing it. The lighting is much better on this end, so I might have to do the video from this way. But anyway, here you have it. And I will say goodbye until the next video. And thank you for visiting Caribbeanology.